Welcome to the newest football show on the Pittsburgh Sports Now Network. This is the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse, bringing you weekly insight into Pitt football, recruiting, and some WPIAL football as well. But what better way to start off this brand new show to the Pittsburgh Sports Now Network than talking about the Backyard Brawl, one of the top rivalries in all of college football. I'm the host, Nathan Breisinger. Joining me today is our Pitt beat writer, Karl Ludwig. And Karl, there's no better way to start this show than be talking about this great rivalry.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the game that everyone cares about. Everyone wants to watch. I mean, this is one of the best rivalries in college football, without a doubt. I mean, 75 miles apart. Their third year in a row they've been playing after 11 years away. If this game doesn't get you excited, I'm not sure what game will.
Well, before we get too far into this, you got to talk about the game that might not be a rivalry, in the words of Pat Narduzzi, the Pitt football head coach. The River City rivalry, which, Karl, you were on the ground in Cincinnati covering that game. Have to talk about that first before we get into anything more about these two teams meeting on Saturday for the 107th edition of the Backyard Brawl. But Pitt trailing 27-6, mounted, as you put it, a miraculous comeback, epic comeback, a lot of terms you could use to describe this one. But I want to ask you, because you were there, Carter Brown kicks that field goal to make it 27-6 late in the third quarter. What was going through your mind? Like, did you think that this Pitt team had it in them to come back?
I mean, I'll be honest. I sat by Dominic Campbell of Sports Illustrated inside the Panthers, and I was telling him the whole game. I was like, man, Eli Holstein just doesn't. It's not his day today. He doesn't look comfortable. He's missing throws. He's shaky in the pocket, and then they had that field goal and they're done by 21 points. I'm like, man, at what point do you put in Nate Yarnell, who has been lauded the entire offseason as this confident, mature starter, and then Holstein comes back out after that and leads a scoring drive, and it's like, okay, well, he looked good there. I think it was 4 or 5 for 80 yards, a touchdown to Nathan Mumfield, and it's like, okay, down by 14, maybe it's a game again, and I mean, Eli, he showed some serious grit. He showed some balls there, and he looked fantastic. And I know it was a tough first half, but for his very first ever road start, his second career game ever, that was some serious moxie and some serious ability to kind of brush off a horrific start and win and take the game by the balls and win it like that. It was very impressive.
Yeah, and it was so reminiscent to that game last year in Pittsburgh between those two schools. Since he got up 27-7, Dracovic, who was just playing an abysmal game that game, just somehow found a way to get a couple touchdowns in there. And that game was so much further away than what that score indicated. But this time around, just completely different. Biggest comeback in 50 years for this Pitt program, and really a confidence booster. But want to touch on, though, that offense with Holstein, and the connection that he was able to get to bring that team back, with guys like Konate Mumfield having 2 touchdowns there, Desmond Reed with the big 56-yard catch and run, and then also sort of the play that I think goes a little under the radar in this game is that big pass, whatever it was, 20 to 30 yards to Mumfield downfield on the final drive that allowed them to set up that sauce. I mean, Mumfield got open. He ran a nice route, and Holstein went through his progressions, because I don't think that was his first option. And he climbed the pocket just a little bit, which he was doing. He was doing pretty good all game, and connected to Mumfield. Sorry. But I mean, just talk about this offense, and we saw finally how quick they can really score against a Power 4 team.
Right. Well, I'll start off with saying you mentioned Phil Dracovic last season and last year's failed comeback. That's the one difference in last weekend's game is Eli Holstein is a gamer. He came back. He gave Pitt the chance to win the game, and he won the game with his arm and his legs. The one difference last year was Phil Dracovic. He was in that position. He had a chance to lead the game-winning drive, and he threw an interception to lose it. So, Eli Holstein, for all that he is, for all the flaws he's shown through 2 games, he's young. He has an awesome arm. He's a fantastic pocket presence, and he can win games, and that'll be huge as he continues to progress throughout the season. But just against Cincinnati, the offense looked. I mean, we all know the first half was rough. I mean, Eli, he had some open throws that he missed. That's going to happen. He didn't look sharp. The offense didn't look sharp. The defense didn't look sharp. It was a tough first half, but I think Pat Narduzzi mentioned it. Cade Bell mentioned it. Randy Bates mentioned it. The adjustments at the halftime break were huge, and the defense locked in, especially in the second half. But the offense, Cade Bell gave Eli some easier throws, some high percentage throws, like the screen or the crosser to Desmond for that 50-yard touchdown. I mean, he gave him chances just to stand in the pocket, to make his reads, to look out over the field and progress across his reads, and he did it. He hit all the throws he had to make. He hit Konate for 2 touchdowns. He hit Desmond for his 1 touchdown. He was cool and collected. I think he was 10 of 11 for 190 yards in the fourth quarter alone. When the lights were shining bright and he had to make plays, he did so, and it was in large part because of Cade Bell's offense getting guys open. He gave him chances to make the easy throws and turn easy plays into big plays, and that's what he did. I mean, and that's no shade to Eli. He made some very nice plays, but Cade Bell's offense through 2 games looks incredible. It's night and day from last season, and that's if Eli is the one difference on the field, Cade Bell is night and day. It's an astronomical difference from last season with Frank Cincinnati Jr. It's a game changer.
And as I'm sitting at home, taking my notes, watching this game, as Narduzzi had mentioned, a lot of the players had mentioned that we talked to this week, the belief was there, and you could feel that. Like once they scored, especially in the span of time that they did, you could feel that like this game could get really, really close and a lot closer than what it was last year, and that the Pitt had a chance. But once the dust settled after Ben Sauls kicked that 39-yard field goal, in walks Pat Narduzzi, in walks Eli Holstein to talk to you guys that were on the ground there in Cincinnati. And Eli Holstein had talked about that he issued an apology to the coach, to the teams at halftime and after the game about, this one's on me. This first half is on me. I mean, what does that say about him? I mean, being able to shoulder the blame as a redshirt freshman.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's honest. I mean, the first half, I mean, it's not all on his shoulders. The defense wasn't sharp. They missed some fits, they missed some reads, some mental mistakes, but Eli was not sharp in the first half. I mean, he had some throws that were there that he missed on. I mean, there's an easy I think on the first or second drive, he had Konate Mumfield running deep down the seam and he missed him. He overthrew him. He had Poppy Williams on a third and 5 running open downfield, and he missed him. I mean, he missed some throws. He wasn't sharp, but Cade Bell today was like, yeah, we're going off the field, and Eli grabbed me, and he's like, hey, that's on me. I messed up. I had a bad half. It won't happen again. And the second half began a little bit slow, but once Cade got Eli moving, once he got him kind of rolling on a bit, using his legs to pick up some chunk yards, to move the sticks a little bit, to stay ahead of the sticks, you saw Eli kind of settle in. He made the right reads. He made the correct throws, the easy throws that led to big plays. And he told us after the game, he was like, yeah, once I kind of just settled down and played the game I was supposed to play and hit the throws I was supposed to hit, it looked great. I mean, they scored 22 points in 16 minutes. They came back and won the game because Eli made the right plays. And for him to shoulder that blame, to brush off the horrible half that he had and come out and play the way he did, I mean, that's unprecedented for a second-year quarterback making his second career start on the road in a very, very hostile environment. And that was a very loud Cincinnati crowd.
And as a whole, this team just, the ability to come back. Karl, you and I had talked about just the defense shut down Cincinnati in the fourth quarter, let up maybe 40-some yards to them across the final 15 minutes. But, I mean, Eli Holstein being able to do that as a redshirt freshman, take that blame, apologize to the team. I mean, that's just something we really, not to keep talking about him, but we didn't see it from Phil Dracovic last year and led to, the type of season they had before they took him out. And, the following week of last season happened to be the Backyard Brawl where Dracovic was arguably just as bad as he was against Cincinnati.
Abysmal. He was abysmal. Yeah.
So, and again, you were there, a game that 17-6. I was rewatching it again last night, and I mean, 3 interceptions. 2 of them were
Some of the
just
worst throws you'll
bad.
ever see. Yeah,
They
it
were
was.
just bad. They were just bad in throwing into triple, double coverage. There was one that Bum Means had actually gotten space downfield, and I don't know if Jerkovic just didn't have the arm strength to get it to
At
him.
the end of the first half throw where he has
Yeah, yeah,
he's bub deep. Kanate's on the crosser,
yeah.
and he just throws. Yeah, no man's land. There's 4 Mountaineers there. I'm to, even to this day looking back on it, I'm not sure who he was throwing to.
But
I have no idea what he saw there.
But last year's in the past, and 2 years removed from the big win that Pitt had at Acrisure Stadium to bring back the rivalry in a big way. I mean, started off the season Thursday night football. I mean, college game day was there. It was just an epic atmosphere the way it was there. 70,000 plus fans inside Acrisure Stadium, and then MJ Devonshire caps things off with that huge pick six in through the hands of Bryce Ford Wheaton. But Karl, what does this just rivalry mean to these two teams?
Well, I mean, I think all you have to do is listen to what Neil Brown has been saying all week about how they're playing Alabama. They don't want to play Alabama. They want to have a game like the Backyard Brawl. They want to play Pitt every single season. And I think the guys on Pitt side, I think Pat Narduzzi, um, all the admin, all the coaches, all the players, they want to play this game. This game means something. It's not like playing in the River City rivalry against Cincinnati or playing against Syracuse or anyone else. The Backyard Brawl means something. These players they get excited. The fans show up. Everyone shows up. It's a national game. 70,000 people will be at Acrisure Stadium. 30,000 more out in the parking lots tailgating. I mean, this is the game that matters. You win this game, no matter what happens the rest of the year for most seasons. This is what matters. West Virginia can go 11-1. They lose this game. That's what counts. That's what's talked about. So this game is super important. It has a lot of. I mean, 107th game all time. First game was 1895. I mean, the history, the moments, the culture shared with both programs being 75 miles apart. Even just in the past 2 seasons, I mean, MJ Devonshire's pick or Pitt six now is legendary. And last season, when Pitt was down 17-6 and looking listless, and they're playing Sweet Caroline of the loudspeakers, and the fans are chanting what they're apt to say. I mean, it means something different with these fans and these teams, and it's just there's not. This is what it's all about. The Backyard Brawl is what college football is all about. So this game is super important for all the players and coaches and all the fans, and it goes without saying it's a huge game.
And you mentioned those big plays that, live in history, the pick six from Devonshire, but you think about the 13-9 game in '07 that took out, West Virginia from potentially playing in the championship game that season of college football. And then you think about Darrelle Revis's punt return, like some just big plays, as you mentioned, Karl, and expecting it to, the Mountaineer faithful to really travel into this one. But what does Pitt need to focus on in this game? Maybe just rely on in terms of strength, or even something that like they need to adjust compared to the first 2 weeks.
Right. Well, so I think it's important to note that Cincinnati I think is fifth in the country in rushing through 2 weeks, and I think West Virginia is third. Two similar offenses. I think Garrett Green is a better quarterback than Brendan Sorsby, so that's a huge factor. But they both teams they played in the last 2 weeks love to run the ball, and West Virginia is no different. I mean, they have a great 1-2 duo in C.J. Donaldson and Jaheim White. They have a strong offensive line. Um, it'll be a challenge. I mean, and Pitt prided itself on stopping the run. So there's no better test than West Virginia to stop the run, to stop Garrett Green, to make him throw. I mean, he's a great dual threat quarterback. But if Pitt has its way and he throws the ball 40 times a game, that's perfect. That's just what they want. They want him to throw the ball, to make mistakes with his arm, and not let him escape, contain, and run wild on them. Which is it wasn't the last season was interesting because he got hurt pretty early, and they had to have Nico Marchial in the game for most of the game. But um, Garrett Green was fired up to play Pitt. This is probably his last chance to do so. He wants to run wild. He wants to have the huge game. And if Pitt can contain him, if they can get against Cincinnati in the first half, they couldn't hit home, they couldn't convert those pressures into sacks. If they can pen him up, they can hit him hard. If they can make him kind of worry of the pressure and of standing in the pocket, then it's a whole different game because he's a difference maker. He's a great quarterback. He has a great 1-2 punch. So I think it comes down to the who can win the line of scrimmage. If it can Pitt's pass defense beat Mountaineers pass protect and vice versa. So it'll be one in the trenches, either on both sides of the game.
Absolutely. And a lot of turnover on the West Virginia line a little bit. You don't have Zach Frazier there or at center, but Pitt especially, I mean, their defensive line's pretty much brand new besides maybe Nakai Johnson, who didn't start a whole lot prior to this year. Jimmy Scott's been in the program, but you have Nate Matlack, who's new to the Pitt team, that's new to this rivalry. A lot of young redshirt freshmen. We'll see if Francis Brew plays in this game. And then again, the linebackers will be an important piece of this team. But looking at obviously West Virginia losing to Penn State in week 1, such a wacky game with the weather delay. And Penn State just has that pulling away power against so many teams. But looking at last week, West Virginia against Albany, a 49-14 win. It was close going in near halftime, 21-14. Albany had it. But then, West Virginia just blows them out in the second half. Garrett Green going 17 for 23, 236 yards through the air with 3 touchdowns, but also had 76 yards rushing on the ground with a couple of long ones with a touchdown as well. And then you talked about C.J. Donaldson and Jaheim White bringing both 100-plus yard games. And C.J. Donaldson's just been a game wrecker for West Virginia in the Backyard Brawl specifically. Back-to-back 100-plus yard season or games against the Panthers. And in that first game in 22, no one knew who the C.J. Donaldson guy was, not even recruited as a running back. Yeah.
He's a true freshman tight end playing wearing number 40, running the ball for 70 yards. Like, who is this guy?
But and the other thing, we didn't mention it really what this rivalry means. You talk about the proximity, but also a lot of guys have been recruited by both programs on both sidelines. Rodney Gallagher had 34 yards last week. A Uniontown or Loyal Highlands high school product in the WPIAL. A lot of recruits are expected to be there on the Pitt sideline. So this is just, a massive matchup. Now, we talked about how important Eli Holstein has been to this offense, to this team, but Karl, who needs to be a big difference maker for the Pitt side of things in this one?
Right. So, I mean, obviously Eli's important. Desmond Reed's important. He's going to have a ton of touches on the ground, through the air. Kanante is important. Kenny Johnson's important. But I think the most important guys will be those interior linemen. Lyndon Cooper, BJ Williams, and then maybe Jason Collier, maybe Ryan Jacoby, whoever is healthy enough to play that game. I think I mentioned earlier about the line play. It's just as important for Pitt. If Pitt can stop that West Virginia pass rush, that defensive line play. I mean, they have 2 sacks through 2 games now, which is not great, but that's still a defense that loves to create pressure. They love to get home. They love to wreak havoc in the backfield. So if those interior linemen can kind of give time for Eli to step back, to step up in the pocket, to make his reads, to hit his easy throws, I mean, that's huge. Obviously, the skill players are important. Desmond Reed's important. Eli's going to have a game, but if Pitt can give him time to make those plays, to make those reads, to hit his targets, the easy throws, and Albany had 300 and some yards of passing against West Virginia last week. Eli has hit 336 and 302 through 2 games. I mean, so if he has time to sit back there and dissect a shaky secondary, he should have a pretty big game, a pretty big standout game, and maybe his hello moment to college football.
Yeah, 306 passing yards allowed by the Mountaineers against Albany is what that's at. But, you talked about the trenches, repeatedly so far. And the big thing that, kind of, you think about from last year's, Pitt took a ton of penalties. And a lot of those were on the line. Branson Taylor and some others. I mean, it was a young, inexperienced line playing together. I mean, there was what, 10 different starting units throughout the season. I mean, it was just so inconsistent, so chaotic on that line, and 9 total penalties in that game. That was huge because West Virginia only took 4 penalties. And when it's a battle for position all game long, that comes in to be a big factor in that game. And that was huge when it came down to it. But from this one, how do you see it just playing out? I mean, what you can give a score prediction here, you can do whatever you want, but like, where do you see this game ending up?
Yeah, so I mean, today Cade Bell talked to the media, and he was saying how he gave a kind of a his dad Kerwin Bell is a head coach. He's coached for a long time now. He was saying how his dad wants to start fast, to build the momentum up, to and then just roll the entire game as long as you can. Don't let go of momentum. So I think Pitt. I wouldn't be surprised if Pitt wins the coin toss if they take the ball and try and score fast, and they try and start hard, and they try and press down hard in West Virginia and just go as hard as they can offensively. Because um, starting fast with Cade Bell is huge to get those early momentum plays down, to get the early completions down. So um, I'm not. I mean, I wasn't sure last week with Cincinnati. I was kind of waiting to see how it would go there, and Pitt handled business in a very roundabout way. So I think Pitt will try and start fast. I think they'll try and run the ball hard with Desmond Reed. They'll get him the ball in space. They'll try and try and get the easy completions for Eli, get him confident, and yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling pretty confident about Pitt here. I think Pitt has the pieces, they have the scheme, and they have a defense that, if it plays up to potential, should be able to limit Garrett Green just enough to where it's in a high scoring, but but a game that Pitt can come out on top of. So it'll be a fun one. I think the most disciplined team, because Pitt in the first half against Cincinnati was not disciplined. They took some dumb penalties, especially on special teams, on kick returns. They sent them back to the 5, to the 10, to the 8. I mean, the last touchdown drive was a 94-yard drive. So they got to play disciplined. They got to play smart football, and then they can't turn the ball over and get sacked a lot. So if they can do that, I think Pitt will come out on top in like a 28-24 game, 31-27 kind of game. I mean, it's going to be a very fun, competitive game. But I think Pitt has a game plan to where they can execute that. If they can hit their keys and read their keys and execute well, they should win the game.
What's our spread on the game?
I think it's two and a
Is that
half.
two
Two
and a
and a half
half?
West Virginia. Last I
I mean,
saw, it was 2.5 West Virginia.
you're looking like Pitt could cover the spread. And even if they lose by a point, because that's where I'm sort of heading with this one. I mean, we talked about it before the year and what West Virginia possesses, and then this is a brawl. It's going to be punch after punch, blow after blow. I think what we could see is a quick start from both teams. I think Pitt could score twice, West Virginia can be right there, and then there's going to be like a settle period where things settle down a little bit more of a feeling out process after the quick blows to open up the game. And then that's where it turns into not as much of a game like last year, but maybe the 2 years ago, where we just see teams jockeying for field position, and whoever can strike, and maybe it comes down to the turnover battle. I mean, West Virginia won it last year, Pitt won it the year before. I mean, that's what it came down to. So, I mean, you got to look at that and who can come up with a takeaway, whether it's a fumble, forced fumble, fumble recovery, PJ O'Brien, Brookins in the secondary. Someone else is going to make a name for themselves in this matchup. I mean, that just is how it seems every single year with this matchup, and we've only gotten 2 years of it, at least over the past decade and a half. So I'm seeing like maybe a 31-30 game. West Virginia comes in, sneaks one out. Garrett Green, obviously, I mean, that's critical if he can stay healthy, because he didn't last year, and Pitt just could not capitalize on that. But if Green is healthy, he can run the ball, with Donaldson and White also doing their damage. I think it's just that D line. I just don't know if they can hold up as well as we've sort of maybe seen or we think they can do. But I think West Virginia can come out on top on this one.
it's a massive test here for both teams. I mean, the Pitt defense was supposed to be the strength of the team. Through 2 weeks, it hasn't been. I mean, the D line has not gotten home as much as it needed to. The run defense has been suspect. And I mean, you ask Randy Bates about it. It's players who are not they're not making the right mental decisions. They're not filling the right gaps. It's correctable stuff, but at a certain point, you have to make those corrections. And in a game like this, where it's gonna be a raucous environment, you have to be perfect. And if you're not, it'll hurt you. So it's a massive test for the Pitt defense. I mean, especially the Pitt has to marry that pass rush with the pass coverage. And in the first half against Cincinnati, it certainly was not married together well. Rylan Gandy, Timon Lynham, Rashad Battle, they had to be strong against this fast, shifty West Virginia receiving core. So it's a pretty good matchup. I think the pieces fit together well. Um, it's about who can execute and who can be mentally tough in this tough environment.
And it's also just a big temperature check for both of these teams. Last week, Pitt felt like a must-win game in
Yeah,
terms of the season, and luckily they were able to find a way to win that game, because last year we sort of saw it against Cincinnati last year, and then Pitt went on to what they ended up being at 3-9, and same thing with the West Virginia game. But West Virginia won. Neil Brown was on the hot seat basically heading into that season. That game last year was huge for him to get that win, and then they wound up going 9-4. So like this is a game where Pitt has one more non-conference test after this against FCS Youngstown State. West Virginia continues on their schedule. It's huge to see where these two teams are at.
absolutely. I mean, this is if Pitt if so the goal is before the season began was to go 3-1 in non-conference play. If they beat West Virginia, they'll go 4-0. The Winter comes to play at 4-0, which is unprecedented in the past 5 or 6 years. So this is a massive test. If they can go 4-0 unbeaten in non-conference play, the ACC is a whole different story. 8 wins should be not just like a oh, okay, that could happen. That should probably be expected of the last 8 games. So this is a huge test, and it'll show what Pitt is going forward now, offensively and defensively. So there is no one has to tell either team that the time to go. It's both teams know what to do. Both teams know what's at stake here. It's about going out there and doing it now, and that's sometimes easier said than done. But I do think if Pitt does what it's supposed to do, if Eli Holstein can correct his mistakes from last week, if he can start fast, if Pitt can fill their gaps and execute mentally, um, I don't see why it can't be a Pitt win in a very 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 happy North Shore, um, come 8 o'clock Saturday afternoon or Saturday night.
Well, it's bound to be another exciting chapter in this Backyard Brawl history with, droves of fans going to be coming down Interstate 79 from Morgantown along with the Mountaineers, and it's going to bring North Shore to full capacity. So we thank everyone for tuning into this first episode of the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse. Be sure to check out all of our content leading up to the Backyard Brawl and post Backyard Brawl over on PittsburghSportsNow.com. For my partner, Karl Ludwig, who will be, of course, a frequent flyer on the show as we talk football throughout the year, recruiting as well. I'm Nathan Breisinger. Thanks for tuning in to the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse.